Good morning. Well, it's morning for me. I don't know about you guys. My cats woke me up early, knocking things over in the bathroom and then jumping up on everything and just generally being cats. Their food bowl's full, so I'm not sure what the deal is, but cats sometimes have their own agendas. But I decided to go ahead and get up, and it's a good time to film the next part in my cost-saving series. I think I phrased it before, more kitchen cost-saving tips, and titled the video that way, but honestly, I'm going to be branching into other areas, not just kitchen and food budget. So it all boils down to your household income, right? So whatever we can do to save, especially right now with this just gut-wrenching inflation. It kind of boggles me that the people who deny it happens, but it's definitely happening. I'm like, don't you eat? Don't you go to the store? But yeah, even on those base items, it's really starting to skyrocket. So we got to do what we can in every area of our home that we can to try to keep our budgets down. My budget really hasn't changed that much yet. I try to make allowances here and there. Like the last time I went and got wheat and oats, I got them by 50-pound bags, and they had gone up since the fall. Almost double. Almost double. But, it is what it is. They're still far cheaper buying that way than they are buying individual containers and things at the store. And when I say wheat, I mean wheat berries, not already ground wheat. So anyway, back to the list of tips. I'm going to get through just as many as I can here. I don't know how much time I have before the family starts getting up and moving around, so we'll see what we can do. The next one on my list was to consolidate trips to save gas. I think we all know that. That's kind of obvious as the nose on our faces, right? Especially right now with gas prices going back up. In my area, they kind of peaked up at about 4.30, and then they've crept back down. When I was out, it was yesterday, it was like 3.93, but I don't expect that to stay like that. It just depends on what happens, right? We'll see. Who knows? But regardless, you need to consolidate trips as much as possible. When I do my shopping, my goal is to go every 2 weeks, but a lot of times it's just not happening, and I'm having to do it more frequently, partly because I'm still in stock up mode and just trying to stock where we can, and you'll go out and then maybe something's not available this week, so you really do kind of end up getting stuck going again. But I don't go more than weekly usually. What I try to do is, if I know, like yesterday I went out to Aldi and I knew I had a return for Amazon that I needed to take to UPS, I made sure that I chose the Aldi that's closest to where the UPS is, and little things like that. You just try to minimize your running around, and I think that's something that's kind of obvious. Thankfully, in our household, my husband works from home now, and he doesn't have to go out to work every day, so the gas is not hitting us too bad personally. The worst is when I go to visit my mama. It's a solid, like 4 hours or something now away, so that is quite a bit, but my trips have been kind of getting naturally spaced out anyway, just for the distance reasons, but we still go several times a year usually. Ideally, it would be nice to get down there every month and a half or so, but it's just harder to do, both in time, but now especially gas being high, it's like, oh, that's going to get a lot more expensive, but it is what it is. It's worth it seeing her. The next on my list, I have to watch my points here. I don't have my glasses on, so that doesn't help. Maintain things to save, filters, clean, etc. There's a lot of things in our home that need maintenance. I don't know if you're a person who does that or not. We try to, but it's not always perfect. My word, the cats are really wild today. Anyway, things like filters. A lot of people think of furnace filters, and I think a lot of people do that. Speaking of that, I need to do our filter before we switch to air conditioning this year. The refrigerator nearly always has coils that needs cleaned. Those need to be cleaned once, twice is ideal a year, but at least once. so your fridge can operate more efficiently. Usually, from what I understand, your fridge is one of your most energy-sucking appliances behind things like stoves and such. So it's important to keep them clean so they can function right. If the camera's moving, there's a cat attacking it. Yeah. She was sniffing it, so attacking is kind of a mean word. They were having a fight. I'm sorry. I thought I'm gonna have to start like turning and filming this. Anyway, the fridge, furnace filters, I said that, but in general, things like cleaning your stove and oven out is good for maintenance, just taking care of things. What else? Oh, dryer. Dryer's super, super important. Here comes another cat. Guys, you gotta quit. Quit. Dryer is super important because those are notorious for causing house fires. We have a big blessing there. We almost had one, probably. I think good Lord saved us there. Our dryer, for whatever reason, kept erroring out and shutting down. We didn't pay too much attention to it. We're like, well, it's old, it's probably just dying, right? We went to unplug it, or my husband did, and the box that it's plugged into, the face of it pulled off with the plug. Didn't think a lot about that. He didn't look too closely. We were focused on the dryer itself. Well, I go down to look at it because I'm the fix-it person in the house, and I decided I was going to take it apart and see if there was any kind of loose cords or wires, or maybe the motherboard needed replaced. I wasn't sure, but I wanted to take a look at it, and I started that process. And then I went to take that plastic piece off of the cord. I couldn't. It was melted to it. And then I started looking closer at the outlet. That outlet the areas of it looked a little bit charred, and it was chock full of, on the inside of the outlet of all things, chock full of lint. And how that didn't go up in flames, I don't know. It just had to be the good Lord, right? So I'm pretty convinced that he saved our house on that one. We just plain decided to get rid of the dryer, and advice from my brother and a couple other people was you need to just replace that whole electrical line too. That leads to my next tip. We decided to hold off on doing that. We're not replacing the dryer yet, and we're not replacing the line yet. We're pricing that, and we're going to price maybe converting to a gas dryer. So far they have not gotten back to me on that, so who knows, but in the meantime, I can live without a dryer because we built some lines outside, which is one of my next tip, is line dry your clothing. At first I didn't have the lines. I actually built them on my deck that's out here behind me. That way it's really easy to take it out and take care of it. I built 6 lines. They're not super long, so that's why there's 6, but it's enough. I can hang 2.5 loads on the lines, but I also have a clothing rack out here, which was what I did before the lines, and then I just hung things on hangers. It doesn't work great like if you have blankets, which is why I really needed the lines, but in general it gives me a good spot to hang plenty of clothes outside between that and the rack, and I actually have a couple indoor spots I can hang things too. I can get quite a few loads if I really need to, though we usually try to do 1 load a day. But that whole thing is actually saving us money right now, and I figure I don't really need a dryer, and if we do get one, we probably won't really look at replacing it till fall or winter, because that's the only time it becomes a little bit more inconvenient, because you can do it outside and they freeze. It's just takes a lot longer to get it done, and they still have a little bit of a dampness to them, at least here in Ohio. That seems to be how they are, but I was doing it. I was putting them out there and having our laundry hang stiff and freeze, and it was kind of funny. But it works. We have an area across our washer and dryer to hang. It's actually quite a big bar, so I can hang inside, and we have another clothing rack that sits upstairs. I can hang there too. But there's a lot of ways around a dryer. You don't really have to have one, and even if you have one, you don't have to use it. So totally consider, cutting that off of there and saving that money. I was reading, I don't know if it's true, but I was reading online that most people use approximately $20 to $30 per month just in dryer usage. And I'm like, keep adding that up and we can replace the dryer, right? We probably won't be buying new. We'll probably buy used. That's how we usually are with appliances. We looked at some new ones last weekend, but we'll probably stick with used there, which is another side tip. Anyway, let me get back because I took out a point ahead of time with the washer. I didn't really expect to talk about the dryer mishap, but it was kind of, I guess, timely for the purposes of this video. Sorry if I made a loud clang there. I have a microphone right here and I hit it. Let's see. Be aware of energy use and efficiency and loss. Okay, that's more of in general with your home insulation, things like that. If you can, use the awkward cat. I had to sneeze. Allergies are eating me alive lately. No, it's not the sea. It's just allergies, I promise. Every spring. Where was I? Energy use, efficiency, and loss. Insulation essentially is my main point and thought with that, but it can apply to a lot of things, like leaving in fridges open or leaving in light switches on in your room. In our case, we have an area of our basement we plan on insulating off just as soon as we can, especially before next winter. Right now it doesn't really matter because we're coming out of winter, but it's just a spot that I noticed we can improve there, and I think it'll probably take a couple rolls of insulation, and that's worth it. Our basement stays kind of cool, and my husband works down there, so he's been kind of working off in a separate room and using a space heater, and that way he doesn't freeze to death. It's not that bad, but he gets chilly. Anyway, if we can warm the whole basement up by insulating off the cold side, that's more of our storage side, that would be a better thing to do. So that energy use and efficiency does matter, because that will probably more than likely help cut way down on the space heater usages for the area that he uses that. It's a nice little electric one that's nice and safe, but still that adds up, you know, like that dryer usage and stuff does. Right now we're probably kind of offsetting with that. Excuse me. It's like I said, it's early. I haven't even had my coffee, so my throat's a little bit wonky, especially from these darn allergies. Here is a very, very big one. That's probably a weird one. Don't hide this stuff from your kids. I don't. I mean, I realize some people want to keep them perfectly innocent and completely unaware of all of the cost increases and the things going on in the economy. We choose not to do that. We tell them, we try to teach them about what's going on. We try to teach them about the economics of it all. We do teach our children about the politics of it all, but I'm not going there on here. In general, I think it's important to let them know, and here's another really good reason why, and why it's a tip, is enlist their help. Tell them about why. I am on them all the time. Please don't waste this. Please don't leave packages open. Please don't leave fridges open. Please, you know, make sure you're putting a cap back on this. Help mom and dad by, you know, not being wasteful. And it can be in so many areas. I feel like, especially when it comes to the kitchen, I'm on them. They are doing good. They're improving. They're just been very helpful as much as they can. Like my little girl, she doesn't mind helping with the laundry and hanging it out. Just they do what they can, and they know that it's a hard time on mom and dad, and they're like, well, I won't pester them as much, or, you know, they'll do extra things to earn. Like my daughter was earning some extra money. I think it was last week we were doing some spring cleaning, and she was being helpful. She's like, you don't have to pay me, which is sweet. We did pay her, but she's like, you don't have to. But she knows that things are getting tighter and tighter with budgets, and that, you know, we just got to be careful to preserve what we have, and to be really careful with the things that God has blessed us with. Read of others and how they survive. This goes back to a video I did recently on the Great Depression, or Great Depression book that I have anyway. But read of things like the Great Depression, because those stories can be very encouraging and you can learn a lot from them. There's lots of TV shows and stuff, just like on Amazon. I think if you search Great Depression, you'll get quite a few results. Learn from it. There is a show I like that is on the World War II year era. It is, what's it called? Oh my goodness. I have had so many brain crazies lately. It's basically the 1945 house, I think is the title of it. They were doing the house series. There was like all sorts of different ones that it was like PBS or something doing it. And they had like Colonial House, Pioneer House. They had like the 1900 house, and then there was 1945 house. There was Manor House. All those house series. And it was the 1945 was the one I liked the most. The others I'm like, eh. But the 1945 was really good because I felt like that family really, really tried. What they were doing was going back and trying to live like someone from the 1945 era. Cats are attacking things again. Anyway, they were living in the 1945 era, or like that was 1945, and trying to make it with food rationing and budgeting and doing the old methods of cooking. And it was really cool. They had to learn a lot, and by the end, the grandmother in particularly was really changing a lot of how she was doing stuff, and I liked it. I think there was a lot of cool, good tips, and found it encouraging. But I totally think that it would be good to, I wouldn't say immerse yourself in that kind of thing because, you know, limits. But when you are watching and you need some encouragement, look at how people survived in those rough times. There's another series that's also escaping me that it was How They Survived or something like that, but it was really good too. But, you know, learn from those things. And if you have elders who have lived through tough times, absorb their stories like sponges and learn from them. Listen to the wisdom. Please don't ignore the wisdom of your elders. So many do. I don't know how many times I hear younger people, even people my age, it's just like, oh, they don't have anything to teach. And it's like, oh. Yeah, you got a lot to learn, don't you? You really need to learn from your elders. Come on. It's amazing me that the generations that we see out there that just totally disregard our elders, and we really, really need to listen to them and absorb what they have to say. It's painful. I wish that I had learned even more from my grandmother and such before she passed. She liked to talk about the Great Depression when I was young, and I liked to hear her stories, but I didn't absorb as well as I could have. Gardening, even a little helps increase yearly. So don't come at me if you can't garden. I realize not everybody can. You do what you can with what you got. Most people, even in an apartment, can do a few window plants, or if you have a patio, you can container garden. Read and research container gardening. It's a thing. You can totally grow small variants of tomatoes in a bucket, like aroma plant. You can grow aroma plants in a bucket. You just need to get a little way to stake the plant or a little tomato cage, and it will be fine. Keep it well watered. Add some Miracle Grow or something. You'll be good. But you can grow a few things on your patio. Now, if you're like me and you have a regular house with a little bit of property, we have not a lot, like it's about a half an acre, something like that. And the back half of it's mostly wooded, so that really limits the space that I have to a point, but I have space. My front beds have the most space, which I had to be careful because I don't think my sweet neighbor would appreciate sweet corn in the front yard. But I don't like try to grow obnoxious things in the front, but I do in the fairly large flower beds add in things like lettuce, kale. I started some sage out there, which that's perennial, that'll come back. But do what you can in your space. That's throw in edibles. I'm going to be this year throwing in a lot of marigolds. So at a glance from the street, it's going to look like flowers and other filler plants most likely. But there's going to be a lot of edibles in the front. And then out here I have a little side area with a raised bed, and then an area with a trellis area. And that's where I can kind of grow my heavier stuff. I'm going to try growing over here on the east side of my house and see how some of that does. I'm going to do a test tomato plant, see if it really gets enough sun. I'm not sure. Tomatoes fussy about sun. I'm not sure if it will. But the point is, grow what you can where you can. It may be a little, it may be a lot. Could we do a much bigger garden on a different property? Absolutely. But we don't have a giant property, so we do what we can. To some, our property might be giant, I don't know. I live in Amish country, and our property is pretty small compared to most people around me. So it just depends on what you have, but you can totally get a lot. Like last year I grew I think it ended up being 22 tomato plants, and that was quite a lot for most people's standard of tomatoes, but I use a lot of salsa. So I got away a ton of jars. I think it was 40 some quarts, or it was a lot of salsa, but I use a lot. It's low carb and all of that. So anyway, this year I want to focus on plain tomato, and I do some brassicas like broccoli and things like that. I'd like to get some more green beans. I want to do cucumbers this year, but just add a little bit. Don't start your gardening and then try to go full tilt with everything all at once. If you do, it's not terrible because you still learn from it. Just be careful about how much you invest into it, because it can get expensive if you go crazy. One of the ways to keep it much, much cheaper is what you see behind me. That is seed starting. There are cheap shop lights. Those are not fancy grow lights. They're just like regular shop lights that you can buy for $10 to $15 usually. Some are from Walmart, some are from Amazon, some are from Menards. And then above there's an entire tray full of tomatoes. Some that one's empty right now. I still got more seeds I want to start. I just have to space the timings. But there's a whole container from like a fast food restaurant or something where we had ordered something, and they make like great little mini greenhouses, and I restart my petunia seeds. Last summer I had a massive amount of petunias in the front yard. It looked like a weird wild petunia farm, but I didn't know that you're supposed to prune them to keep them from growing tall. My petunias were like up above my knees, like mid-thigh. They were really tall. But that was all from like seed, and a lot of the seed is from Dollar Tree. It's not expensive seed that has come from expensive stores. The exception is I do have some special tomatoes, just because I like my tomatoes. I have Red Heart that I'm growing this year, and Brandywine. I really like those. But you know, a lot of your basic tomatoes and tomato seeds, like I know you can buy Roma seeds at the Dollar Tree. That is a very common tomato. Most people know what those are from the grocery store. But I've got in there, you see like, well, you probably can't see because the light's getting, but there's like 36 marigolds that I've started so far. I'll probably start some more. But the point of those is I'm going to interplant them, and they can help deter bugs, and it keeps it looking prettier. But I'm going to have plantings out there, so do your garden. Obviously, I can rabbit trail off on the gardening a long time. But do your gardening, whatever you can, even if it's just a few plants. Save green onions, regrow them in a windowsill. They will totally regrow, and you'll get another use or two off of them. Whatever you can do, it helps, believe me. And the gardening kind of goes into my next tip, which is learn to can. I know a lot of you all find that very intimidating. I totally get that. It can be intimidating. I've done it for a long time, and sometimes I still like, I really don't want to do that. I don't want to pull all that stuff out. But it is a huge blessing, especially right now when not everything's certain. And if you can grow something and then can it, or even go to the farmer's market and then bring it home and can it, then you're getting some really good quality food that you might not even be able to buy it all because of availability at the store. But you also can control your ingredients and know what's in it. It's a really important thing. I don't recommend jumping in the very first thing you can being pressure. I think the first thing is far better with water bath. And you know what? Most people can water bath without buying just about anything except for the jars and lids. If you can go and buy a package of jars and lids, I know they have been harder to find and all that, but right now Walmart has them, and several of my other stores around, they have them. They are marked up for normal. They're about running $2 higher a dozen, but you can go buy you a dozen and practice the water bath. Water bath is literally just making sure your jar is completely immersed in water. You need a good inch or so of water over top of the jar. So if you have a deep stock pot, you can water bath can. The rack for the bottom, you can take the lids or some extra lids from a jar, and you can put those in the bottom so that the glass isn't touching the very bottom of the pan. So learn to water bath at very least. There's a lot of things that are water bath. Anything that's high acid, like jams and jellies, salsa, tomatoes, though sometimes you have to add just a little bit of acid into the tomatoes to make sure they stay acid enough. But those things can totally be water bath. You do not need to pressure can them. Things like green beans, you absolutely need to pressure can. I am not much of a rebel canner. I tend to follow safety rules for the most part. It depends on what something is. I might be willing to go rebel on a point, but there's a lot of things that I won't. And green beans is not one of them. Green beans is a low acid food, and I know there are some recipes out there that people water bath them or oven can and do it for really long periods of time. I'm not comfortable with that because it's not going to get high enough in temperature to kill the botulism spores in that green bean, and I'm like, I wouldn't do that. If you've done it all your life and you've never gotten sick, then praise God that you've never gotten sick. I just don't want to risk botulism. It scares me. I have heard from Rose Red Homestead that if you do have something like that and you boil it for 10 minutes, you're probably going to kill that. So if you're going to do rebel canning, make sure you're boiling it really, really well for 10 minutes before you eat it. So, if you're going to go down the rebel canning road, I get it, but be smart about it. And that is a really, really, really good channel for anybody who's trying to learn canning. She's very scientific in how she approaches things, and she tests recipes all the time, which I love. And she's been testing some canners and stuff, like the electric ones, and I'm like, oh, I really like seeing that because that lets me know, do I have any confidence in trusting them, because I don't always believe what I'm told from people who are selling them, telling me that it's safe. So anyway, canning, please learn it. If you don't feel comfortable with that and you just can't bring yourself to do it, then consider purchasing a dehydrator. Dehydrators aren't very expensive, and you can preserve a lot of food that way and make it shelf stable. You can even buy pre-frozen vegetables like at Walmart for very cheap, dehydrate them, and now they're shelf stable and you're not reliant on freezers. So there's so much you can do, and if you get a really good deal on strawberries one day at, whether you're a Walmart or a Kroger or whatever grocery store you have, you can go through and dehydrate just a ton of strawberries. Whatever works, but it is really helpful to have a dehydrator. We got one a couple years ago. My husband got it for me for my birthday. It was something I'd asked for, and I think it's 9 trays, and I like the tray. It does the fan from the back, kind of like the expensive Excaliburs, but it's not. It's like a Chard, I don't know how, CHARD brand. So far it's doing good. I got it because I can pull the trays out, and technically I could incubate yogurt in there if I wanted to, because it will hold that low temp. You could do things like rye bread, however you say that, in there. It's that lower warm temperature that like a lot of ovens can't do. My oven can't go that low. So I actually do yogurt in my Instapot now that I have one. It's so easy to do. But anyway, let's see. Common phrase. I think we've all heard it, but we all need reminded. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. Family said that for years, and it is so true right now. Truly, use it up. Make sure you're using it all completely. I don't know how many times I've seen my daughter almost throw away peanut butter, and it'll be a lot of it still in there, and I'm like, no, don't do that. There's more in there, or whatever it is. It's just don't waste that last little bit, because you need to use it up. When it comes to clothing, you need to wear it out. She particularly has no problem wearing out her clothes. She's 10 and she's hard on clothes. My son, he's 14. He's far less hard on clothing, so he's still growing out of it. But in general, if it's a piece that can be passed down, we try to do that, wear it out. Whatever it is, use it completely and thoroughly. I know I do that with my own clothes, sometimes to my detriment. I probably take things a little bit too long. We had a sheet that has a hole from a toenail catch and stuff, and then that just kind of ripped right down the grain of the fabric. So that sheet, I could sew it up, and it's going to leave a seam kind of right where you don't really want it. But what I'm going to do is, that sheet is a really nice soft cotton. I mean, so soft you can't buy that. Not buy regular fabric stores, but because it's been worn a little while, it's really broke in, and it's been washed quite a few times. So super soft, super absorbent cotton. That's going to probably be made into handkerchiefs, because I can cut right around that hole, and then I can get a ton more handkerchiefs off that thing, and it'll be much softer fabric than about anything else. So use it up, wear it out, and then make it do. Make it do. Oh my goodness, there's so many things. It's like that little goofy spatula video I did a while back. You know, I still haven't messed with that spatula. It still has the binder clip on it. I know, don't judge me. It is what it is. But I'm making it do. I don't care to take the time to deal with that, I guess, is ultimately what it amounts to. But you make things do. Sometimes you just don't need to go buy a new thing. If you can make do with something, then don't. If you can use something else. I was sitting there looking last night. I had bought at Aldi a big thing of burger, and that tray that it came in is a big heavy plastic tray, and I was kind of marveling at the irony that I had bought some new trays for my plants underneath them. I reuse those, and the underneath trays from the past couple years have gotten holes, so I went to Menards and bought some new trays for them. And then I'm sitting here looking at the meat tray, and I'm like, if I had split my plants into two sections, you know, just two of those meat trays, obviously cleaned out and bleached or something, would totally have sufficed for that. So like, I could probably keep those, because they're actually quite a heavy plastic. They're made for holding that heavy meat, and I'm like, I could totally use that for plant trays or something. Technically you could use it for an organizational bin, and I know some of y'all are gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's gross, it's meat tray. Bleach, use it. It ain't gonna hurt you. Seriously. I mean, like, people sometimes get wigged out about the most silly things to me. I know y'all might get mad at me saying it's silly, but I really think it is. It's cleanable. Every little part of it is accessible, so why not reuse it? Now, grant you, I don't think you need to keep every bit of trash. I am not that way. I do throw things away. But if you do have a use and purpose for it, if suddenly the good Lord brings to your mind a good use or purpose for something, keep it, fix it, make it useful. And you're being environmentally friendly. You're being nice to the landfill because you're not adding something to it that doesn't really need to go there if you have a purpose for it. If you know that it's going to sit on a shelf and you're never going to use it, then get rid of it or donate, whatever, depending on what it is that you got. But, you know, just be thoughtful about it. I don't advocate, you know, drowning yourself in clutter as a hoarder. You know, some people call me a hoarder because I do keep things like that once in a while. But ultimately, I think it's following in the spirit of that make it do or do without, because you may not be able to go to the store one day and buy extra plastic trays or whatever it is. People are like, oh, you have a fear of scarcity. Yeah, I do. But, you know, it's not that I'm living in fear of it. It's just being wise of the possibility. You know, why pitch something just to go rebuy it? I just don't get that. If you're trying to keep your space clear in your, like, of the minimalist mindset, I kind of get it. There's a part of me that really gets and wants to move toward more minimalistic ways. I watch those videos like Dawn the Minimal Mom. I love their channel. But in the same turn, I think you've got to be careful. You have to find balance between minimalism and hoarding. And I kind of laugh at the different videos and stuff that I've watched on YouTube because of that. It's just like I look like I'm, you know, dual-minded there or something. But I think you just need balance. There are absolutely times you need to let go of stuff. Last summer I went to the basement and I let go of a lot of stuff that I was holding on to just for keepsake. And it just didn't have a purpose anymore. I take a photo of it and get it on out of here, get it out of my way, because it's stuff I don't have to manage. And that to me is important too. I don't want to keep useless things. But if you will use it, if it will save you money, and you can repurpose and make things stretch, then absolutely keep them. So find your balance, but lean, especially right now, toward use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. The next tip was washing and line drying. But with that, the line drying, of course, we already talked about. Washing clothing every other time. And I know some of y'all are going to be screaming, that's gross. But you know, come on, a lot of times things are fine. It depends on what it is. For me, skirts, for example, it is really easy for me to wear skirts more than once because I usually have things on under them. You have underwear and you have pantaloons and stuff like that. They're not even hardly touching your body. So, you know, it's really not that hard unless I get something on them, which even with my aprons, I am the biggest klutz of, you know, on the planet. So sometimes I do get stuff on it. By all means, wash it if you do. But in general, a lot of times you can rewear something and you don't need to wash every stinking time. I do it with nightgowns too. I don't wash them every time. I do feel like I'm a clean person. I'm not nasty. I try not to smell. You know, no one wants to smell. But in the same turn, be thoughtful. Yeah, I don't advocate rewearing your underwear. Just be thoughtful about what you're doing, but try to minimize all of the heavy washing, and then you're minimizing your laundry soap, you're minimizing your energy usage for your water, and if you are using a dryer and all that, and your time for that matter. Your time's valuable. You can be doing other things, right? Let's see. The last one on this page, and that is all I'm going to do because this video has gone on ridiculously long, is LED bulbs. And that's this page, and I still have a couple more pages. We'll do those in another video or two. LED bulbs is a cost saver. I think we have all of the bulbs in this house now. We just moved into this house like 2 years ago, but one of the first things we did was go through an LED bulb most of the fixtures. I think we got them all. I don't think there's any missing. There may be one or two. We had gotten a large batch of LED from Amazon for a really good deal, and we went through. Now, I will say I would not buy those bulbs again because they did not last very great. We've had to replace a lot of them in the past couple months, so they barely made it. Well, I guess it's been right about the two. A little less than that is what they made it, and then we had to replace them out. I do have better success with Walmart Great Value bulbs. Hardly had to replace any of those, so just, yeah, if you buy brand ones, whatever, LED does still last a lot longer, even the bad ones, than you know, your traditional incandescent bulbs. I don't think too many people are probably using incandescents, but maybe you are. If you hate the color, I know they even make the kind that have a more yellow light. I actually really like that white blue light. I really like it. One thing I hate is mixing it, like in one fixture a really yellow light and then another one the really white, but you can get the different tones. I tend to always go for that really white daylight bulb, but you can go for what you want. It's nice that there's options, but it is way, way cheaper to run your fixtures, especially if you're like us, and that's one aspect my kids have not quite gotten down, is flipping the lights off when we're done. Every time I go to that first floor bathroom, that light's on every time. Like, but regardless, it's running 2 LED bulbs. It's probably not a big deal. So it does add up over time. By all means, we need to shut them off. Shut them off if you're not in a room, unless you're going to be back right in just a very short time. In general, converting as many things as possible to LED, I think, will save. Even if I have to buy those little specialized ceiling fan ones, I usually try to pay extra for the LED variant. I hate that ceiling fans have oddball bulbs. Why is that? Why can't they use a normal one? This bothers me. Anyway, that's the last tip I have for you. I think I need my coffee now. I'm kind of getting annoyed about LED bulbs. What do you think? Coffee time? I think it's coffee time. I hope this video blesses you guys, and if you actually hung around to the end, you know, kudos to you. You must be bored. But seriously, I hope that these tips are a blessing to you and that they are helpful in some way. And again, please add your own to the bottom. I have more to cover. Even if you feel that it's, you know, common, easy tips, add them. It's helpful. It also helps the YouTube algorithm like my video, though I really don't care whether the channel grows or not. It does what it does. I put it out here because I know God may lead one person to certain things that, you know, are needed. I periodically get those messages that this video helped me, and that's what I care about. I also care about that my kids can come out here one day and see this even if I'm not around. and they may need to know what tips their old mama had. So that's the main reason why I do these videos, is for the legacy of my kids, and it helps the Titus 2 aspect of teaching others and all that. So hopefully this video helped you, and if you like it, then look for the next one. Have a blessed day.